This is me earlier this year in March 2022. I still hardly believe that I got there. I was moderating an event, German speech contest. I was doing it in German, a language that I struggled to speak just a few years earlier. And I was moderating this event in front of an audience of German native speakers, around 100 people, online and offline together. It was a hybrid meeting. So how did I get there? The answer is Toastmasters. I want to tell you why I believe Toastmasters is one of the best ways for you to improve your communication and leadership skills. I'll also tell you my story. Let's go. It started 4 years ago. When I came to the club in Innsbruck first, my intention was to improve my German speaking skills. I have already passed the C1 certification. I could read, I could understand the spoken language, and I could write. But I really struggled to speak. Speaking from all these four modalities of a language is the hardest one. Reading and listening are passive language skills. Speaking and writing are active language skills. Speaking is usually the hardest because it's an active language skill and you have to act quickly. You don't have the time to look up the words, think about the best expressions. You really need to just start talking. And this was the weakest point for me, and I really struggled with it. So when I came to the club evening in Innsbruck, I saw a group of, I think, 20 people, 25, and they were all speaking German, giving speeches, giving evaluations, moderating the evening, and so on. As you might remember from the video on self-efficacy, mastery experience and having this vicarious learning, the real role models and listening to the language in its pure form is one of the best ways you can get to improve your language skills. So of course, I joined this club, but I never would have thought how far it will take me. Remember how I told you that I have a notebook for everything? I really do. This is my Toastmasters notebook. M for Marika. It's already a little bit old. The crystals are still shiny. Thank you, Swarovski. In this notebook, I captured every single speech I gave, including my very first one where I introduced myself, and every little feedback I got. You can see that some things are highlighted. These were the things I wanted to focus on the next time. It's huge. It's really, really huge. Oh, I also won the best table topic speech once. I think seriously, it happened only once. At Toastmasters, you have two tracks to develop your skills. The first one is communication skills. This is the public speaking skills, for example, also feedback giving or moderation, like moderating panel discussions, or the leadership skills. These are more strategic, motivating others, team building, managing team and conflicts, lots of communication skills there as well, but with the leadership role. You can develop both. And when I joined first, it was for me only about the communication. So I started very excited. So how does it work with Toastmasters actually? When you join your club in Toastmasters, you also get access to the online learning platform run by Toastmasters International. This is a non-profit organization with headquarters in the US, and they have developed multiple paths in the online system. So you can choose one of them. For example, effective communication or coaching, visionary leadership or motivational strategies. That's mine. I already finished that one. My second one is engaging humor and I'm really struggling, but that's fine. That's how learning is done. Each path consists of 5 levels and they build upon each other. The first one is the very, very basics you need to know as a public speaker and strong communicator. This includes a project or a speech in which you introduce yourself. It also includes an evaluation speech where you give feedback to somebody else's speech or you receive feedback and need to apply it to your next speech. So this is another skill. Then writing a speech with purpose. It's important that every speech you give has a strong message, and that's an ability you can practice and develop in that specific project. What else is there? See, the Level 1 changed since I completed it, so I'm not quite sure what I'm forgetting. If you're Toastmaster, write in the comment, maybe remember. And that's a level 1, just the absolute basics. You're done with that, you will get to level 2, where you learn more about your own leadership style, your own communication style, how it differs from others, and also about the mentoring possibility, how to become a mentor, because that's also one trajectory where you develop both communication and public speaking skills in the mentor role. In the third level, you have more advanced projects that are related to your path, and you can also choose 2 additional projects from all the paths that are there. So I think my project was Introduction to Emotional Intelligence. If I don't confuse them, I definitely did that one, because I remember my speech was way ahead of time, like way over time. It was like 20 minutes instead of 5, because I thought this topic is so important. I just take everybody's time to really explain it in detail. And I'm looking for the other projects, but I don't see. I see level 4, for example. Level 4 are more advanced projects in a way. It's not just about you clicking through online platform, getting some impulses to reflect, and then give a speech about it in your club in 5 to 7 minutes. Level 4 projects are more advanced than that and more elaborate. They require more effort. For example, you can have a project like public relations strategies. That was my project, where you develop a PR initiative. Or you could have a project about Q&A, starting your podcast, starting a blog, all sorts of different, more advanced communication skills. And this really becomes more like a project, not just a single speech in the club. That's level 4. And level 5 is even bigger than that. My level 5 project was team building, which is what I used when I became a president of this club. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I haven't even told you that this happened later. So level 5 is even more, it's more interpersonal. Like level 4 seems to be a project that you just do for yourself. Of course, you can involve others, and you should involve others. You will need other people. But level 5 is really seems to be more about specific leadership skill depending on the path you chose. That's it. And how do you go through this project? So how I did it, you can use the same strategy. I'm a big fan of blended learning because I see benefits of online education and I also see the benefits of offline education. And I believe the combination of both helps us get the best of both worlds if it's done smart. It's not always done smart, but that's not the topic for today. You go to your pathway, you start the project. Each e-learning project takes maybe 10 minutes online, it's not very long. And there you get some input. You also have self-assessment, so you can assess your skills, and you also have this self-assessment afterwards. I think this is a really important element. So in the beginning, you assess your skills. It could be sentences like, I feel comfortable in front of the audience, and you rate it from 1 to 5, or I am aware of my emotions, or I feel my emotions, something related to the project that you're doing. This is the self-assessment. Then you get some input. You can think of it as an interactive blog post somehow. Sometimes there is an example from a different speech just to illustrate how the specific skill is applied. Sometimes there are some reflection triggers or questions or some input. And once you click through this project, your task is most of the time to reflect about it and apply the skills in the club in form either of a speech, prepared speech, or it could be a moderation task. For example, the project of active listening, that was level 2 project. This requires you to ask people questions. You moderate a part of the evening, you ask people questions, and you sum up their summaries. You sum up their answers in order to show and practice this active listening skills. So it's really learning by doing, and in this very safe environment of the club. And after you do this, you get feedback from everybody. This is what you're also doing in the club meetings. You give feedback to everybody constantly, which is why it's such a powerful learning environment, because you get very honest feedback. I can show you some. Okay, it's in German, and this one is only positive. I want to show you some bad feedback. Well, the bad feedback about this was that, about that particular speech, was that it was way too long. For example, here I have some nice feedback. So this was the feedback, and I highlighted the positives. So one of the people gave me a really positive feedback, and the other person told me that the great was that my language was very lively. But what I could improve is that I should move less when I'm giving a speech, because I was walking on the stage left and right and not using the stage consciously. So this was the feedback, for example. And once you get this feedback, you reflect on it, You read through it, you take your conclusions, and then you go back to this online system to finish the project there. And that means assess your skills afterwards. You see that it combines a lot of elements. It combines learning with others, it combines self-reflection and also self-study, self-learning, learning on your own. And a lot of action, like learning by doing as well. That's how you progress through this project. So this is the communication part, and you also have the leadership part. Every club and even the headquarters is run by club members. This is very different to plenty of organizations. Who becomes the leader in an organization is very, very limited. At Toastmasters, everybody has the same chances to become leaders. Each year, the leadership team changes. There are multiple roles in the club leadership team, and each year you can apply to take one of them and use this year to set some goals for yourself and reach them and develop your skills. The Toastmasters I know often say that they come to Toastmasters for public speaking and they stay for leadership, because you can develop a lot of leadership skills very, very quickly. I think much faster than in any corporate environment or even startup. Every person in the leadership team should serve as a role model. So also leading by example is a big aspect of each of those roles. So let me tell you how the leadership team is usually set up. Head of the leadership team is the club president. He or she decides about the strategic direction of the club and makes sure that the whole team works together and holds people accountable as well. He also starts the meetings usually, the club meetings. The right hand of the club president is usually the vice president of education. This is a person who has the best overview of where in their developmental journey every member is. And this person is responsible for the quality of the meetings, the planning, assigning roles like speaker or moderation roles to people, taking care of the agenda. It's really like training preparation on a very high level. It's actually surprising how much effort this role requires. Every role is done on a voluntary basis. It takes quite some time, but this is why you develop a lot of skills. Then you have a vice president of membership. This person is responsible for the guests. So these are the people who come to the club and they sometimes have questions, they don't know what's going on, and the VPM is the person who makes sure that the newcomers especially are feeling welcome, but of course also supports with organization of the meetings. Then you have the VPPR. This role is responsible for getting the word out there for our website, social media, stuff like that. And also collaborations, sponsorships, maybe finding guest speakers for some workshops that the club has planned, and collaborating with other clubs could also be a way. Then there is a sergeant at arms. That's a really key role, which is usually underestimated. And it's really essential. If you, for example, want to be a trainer in the future, in this role you learn exactly what it takes, what materials, how much time it takes to prepare, all kinds of stuff that can go wrong. For example, when you're setting up a hybrid training, how to use Zoom and moderate and how to set the equipment. It's really very, very diverse role. Then you have a secretary. This is a person who writes protocols during the club leadership meetings and ensures the communication between the clubs and the bigger like Toastmasters, helping the president make sure that these action points are being actioned. Have I forgotten anybody? I really don't want to. Yes, of course, the money. There's also a treasurer. So every club runs a little bit like a business. It's a non-profit organization, but there are membership fees because every club needs to pay for the location that they're meeting in, and also to pay some money for the access to the Toastmasters online program. Some of this money gets back to the clubs, for example, in the form of extra cash for some special events that the club could organize, or if the club struggles with growth, that could also be considered to organize some open house event and sponsor the club a little bit to help the club grow. It's very important for the club to grow because each new member gives a new perspective, and the more members that there are, the more feedback you get. So it's more exciting and more motivating to actually prepare your speech and develop. So there is a treasurer who takes care of the budget, of all the fees and the invoices, informs the members about when and how much money they need to pay, and also processes the cancellations in case somebody wants to leave. These are all the roles. They all work together, and you can see that each of them has a different focus, from like IT and training setup to motivating people to online presence and writing, and lots of possibilities. And there is always space for self-initiative. So I'll tell you my story, how it developed. Remember when I joined Toastmasters, I wasn't even confident with my German. It took me quite some time to formulate my thoughts. It took me 2 weeks to write my first speech and get it proofread by a native speaker and study the text and so on, rehearse it. And after I gave the speech, I got so much positive feedback, but I was also stressed during the speech. My voice was shaking, my knees were shaking. After my speech, I was very excited and I wanted to support the club. The reason why was because actually I was surprised about the psychological safety. Okay, this is like learning and development insider jargon, but it's basically about the atmosphere and the culture that the club creates to enable people effective learning. And as you might know from my name of this channel and my background, I'm crazy about learning, and I'm also picky about learning. I will not waste my time on bad learning initiatives. So I was very excited by the club atmosphere, how open people were, how honest and respectful they were with their feedback, because in working environment, sometimes you don't get detailed feedback, and hardly ever you get actionable feedback on which you can improve. Most of the time you just get some praise, and that's also nice, obviously, but to really get you further, it's nice if you know what you can do better, specific tips, what you can do better next time. And at Toastmasters, you get it every evening, and if you don't, you can ask, and you get it from like 20 people or 10, or it depends on how many there are in your clubs. So this is really powerful, and this is what I noticed from the start, and that's why I wanted to support the club. And of course, I wanted to improve my German. So these were my motivators. My first role was to become a kind of like an informal support for VPM and VPPR, because I like to talk to new people, to the guests, and make sure everybody feels comfortable. And I also liked to design stuff and take care of a website and so on. I had the skills from my e-learning job and graphic design background as well. This was my kind of informal supportive role, but very quickly I kind of became formal VPM, because our VPM got promoted, moved out, got a fantastic job offer, thanks also to his Toastmasters skills. So I joined the leadership team as vice president membership, and this role didn't require me to do a lot. I was inviting the guests to the next meetings. I learned some marketing software for, newsletter software, which was really nice. And I was there during the meetings, and I helped people be a member, talking to them, connecting with the treasurer and so on. Because it didn't require so much effort from my side, I could actually do it next to my full-time job and competitive dancing. So that was something that I planned to do the next year. The next year I was pulled into the VPE role. I didn't really want to do it because I was so scared. I just got used to doing things on my own. And suddenly I had to plan the meetings, go to people, ask them if they would take over a role, motivate them to do this. And for each evening, it was like 12 roles. Seriously, this is how Toastmasters runs. There are 3 moderator roles, 3 small feedback giving roles, 3 evaluation speakers, and 3 speakers, at least in our club. Our tasks of the VPE is to organize a speech contest. That means also finding judges and preparing people, briefing them and so on. Take care of a mentoring program and succession planning. These were the words that were like scaring the out of me. I was like, no. This is like, I love learning, I love education, but VPE, it's nothing for me. But the president said like, come on, I'm gonna help you, it's gonna be fine. And this was for me, okay, for the club, I'm gonna take this role. I grew a lot in that role. I struggled in the beginning. I kind of postponed this moment when I would have to ask people to take on some roles. But moving forward, I started getting a better flow, better understanding how much time in advance I should be asking people to actually say yes, and maybe trying to understand their own goals, their own timelines to help them and also help the club at the same time. And this was really something that gave me a lot of fun. Soon after, I had to organize the speech contest. This was the time where we went online because of the lockdown. The nice thing was I was not alone, and we had a lot of support as well from other clubs and other members to jump in as judges. At the end of my VPE year, I was thinking, yeah, this role was so intense, probably it's gonna be my last role. And then my mentor came to me and said, you're gonna stop now, club president is something that you could do so well, and it would be like a natural next step for you. And it's a bit more strategic, less operational, so maybe you could consider it. When he just placed the idea in my head to consider club president, I started imagining the team, how it could look like. I invited some people to apply for overalls like VPE and VPM, and funnily enough, I had a very similar conversation with the next VPE that I had like year before. When that club president called me, it was like, can you do this role? Like, oh no, I'm so scared, how can I ever do this? Don't worry, it's super easy, I'm gonna help you. And I was surprised that I could do all of this after a year. So I was excited also to start as a club president, and I had no idea what I was going to do, seriously. At the same time, thank God, I started my coaching course, and I spent so many coaching hours with my coach trying to figure out what does it even mean for me to lead the club. How do I communicate my vision? What is even my vision, and so on. And when I joined, I only knew that the club is gonna turn 5 years. There are plenty of members who just had like online, offline, hybrid COVID year. And I really want to reward them and want to give them a next challenge, like give them a bigger stage, special event, something like this. And I didn't know how I'm gonna do this, because when I started the year in July, that's what I communicated, and I planned for November. But then in November in Austria, a lockdown came, and there was a lot of mess and unpredictability. But at the beginning of the next year, which is actually 2022, it's already this year, I thought, it's now or never. So I need to organize a speech contest, and that needs to be amazing, because this was my main goal of this year, and I need to deliver. I communicated it in my first ever meeting. I need to deliver it somehow, so I'm gonna deliver it. And it's amazing, how supportive people are. If you have an idea like this, everybody at Toastmasters it's part of the culture. We have these 4 values. They spell RISE: respect, integrity, service, and excellence. And this respect and service, parts of them, I don't remember a Toastmaster who I couldn't count on. That's really something special. And with this contest, it was also very, very special. We had some special workshops, we had a lot of speakers. I aligned with location. And on the same day, the location called me and wanted to cancel the evening because the whole crew got COVID. And I was like, no, we just need a stage, and the audience needs to have fun, and speakers need to speak, and everything else, equipment, whatever, we're just gonna kill it. But we just go in operational mode and just make this event happen. Because I also had judges coming from Salzburg, from Vienna. Some of them were already there. And this was really very important. So in the end, everything worked out. And this is why I'm so happy that it really happened. And at the end of the year, I thought, okay, now it's time for me to say, like, focus on something else. I already put so much effort into Toastmasters in 2 years. I really want a break. And then my mentor, my mentor came to me and said, great job with the club president here. Now you should aim for area director. I'm like, why should I? I already achieved my goals way and beyond. I wanted to just speak German in the beginning. And why should I be the area director? And then he said, as a club president, you can see how you can lead when you're there. But as an area director, you can see how you can lead when you're not there and you're not even in charge. So my only role as area director is to visit the clubs, support their leadership teams, especially the presidents, bring them together, organize the event on the high, like the speech contest on the high level, the regional level, and train the leadership teams twice a year. It didn't sound like a lot. Now I think when I mentioned this, it could sound like a lot, but in comparison to my previous two roles, it really didn't. And it was really intriguing to see how can I support leaders when I'm not there. This was like the key point. And I signed up for this role and I'm so, amazed, like each role that I say yes to, it's like opening a new box of cookies. It's like, wow, I didn't know this flavored cookies existed. And it's really amazing. In this area director role, the cookies are the connections around, like throughout the district. So the district is 14 countries, I think 12 or 14 in countries, which include Austria, Switzerland, Italy, Israel, I think even Turkey, Cyprus, Bulgaria, I think Slovenia. I'm forgetting many because I only mentioned 7. Greece, like a lot. And everybody feels the same, you can just meet somebody or go and visit a different club and they immediately connect to you because they know for which values you are active and what's important to you in life. And this organization seems to attract people who really who are self-starters, and this is so exciting. It's a very supportive community as well, and I found so many mentors and benefited from so many of them already. It's mind-blowing. So that's why I'm still active there, and each year I say the same thing, like this is gonna be my last year at Toastmasters. And I'm scared that it's not going to be the case, to be honest. Let's see. And the reason why I'm scared is because thanks to Toastmasters, I built up so much confidence that I am able now to sit here and talk to unknown audience behind the camera and start my YouTube channel, which is also amazing. And I really believe that a lot of opportunities to share my knowledge on a bigger stage will come my way because I'm practicing my skills, building the connections and sharing my knowledge and adding value out there. So yeah, this is really exciting. This was my story. This was how I developed my communication and leadership skills and the German language skills at Toastmasters. Yay! So I really love German, but I still make some mistakes. If you are also a Toastmaster, write in the comments something about your story. How do you see it so far? What is your next big goal? Share anything you want. So people who don't know the Toastmasters yet, when they visit this channel, they can see and get inspired also from your comments. And if you are not a Toastmaster, maybe you have a specific question or maybe some reflection after listening to the story. Maybe you even start thinking how this organization, how this club experience could help you in your own private or professional goals. Having more confidence when speaking in front of other people, being able to express your opinions in a more respectful way through feedback, or being able even to accept feedback. This is also something that's not very easy and many people struggle with it and they immediately get defensive. This is also a skill that is being developed at Toastmasters. Let me know, let others know, and I'm sure we can create some nice interaction and conversations in the comments. I'm surely going to be responding to some. And thank you for being here with me today, and see you next Friday.